Alrighty, let's go over our final cornerstone of our foundation, and that is to need something. And that can be a thing or it can be a verb. So the structure is we're going to use our dative case pronouns. We don't need to learn a new set. The same set of pronouns we used for liking something, for нравится. And we're going to use one of those pronouns. And then we're going to say either надо, or нужно. And I decided to capitalize the letters of emphasis because it's ridiculously difficult to do accents in Google Docs from what I've seen right now. If some of you know a shortcut, that'd be great. So I'm capitalizing the letters of emphasis so you will know. But yeah, it's either надо or нужно. This letter in the middle, the sound is zh. Нужно. And then we're going to use our imperfect or perfect verb. We still don't know any perfect verbs, so we're going to keep going with the only verbs that we know, which are imperfect. And what we're basically saying, if we're using the object pronoun мне, is to me is needed. Dun, dun, dun. And then it can be either a thing. So like, to me is needed a car. To me is needed a house. To me is needed to go home. Whatever we want to add, that's basically what we're saying. That's why we're using the object pronouns. It's because we're not saying I, we're saying to me, or to you formal, or to her, or to him, or to us, or to them. And then is needed. That's the way you can think about it. Now, I just said you can use either надо or нужно, but as I was saying in class, my bias is toward using нужно. And here's why. While it makes no difference when using надо or нужно for the verbs, it does make a difference when you use it for things. The problem is that, let's say we take the word вода here, water. If I want to say, I need water, if I want to use нужно, I would have to agree the word нужно to the gender of the thing that I need. Thankfully, I don't have to worry about that with the verbs. I just keep using it with the O. But I have to, if I'm dealing with things, I have to agree it to the gender or the plurality of things that I need. So in this case, water is female. And generally in Russian, when words end on a, they are female. There are some exceptions, I believe, but that's a pretty solid general rule at the very least. And so, okay, so I'm going to make it нужна. And I listed them here. So нужен is for male, нужна is for the female thing, and then нужно, the same thing we're using for the verbs, is for middle gender, or the verbs, and нужны is when we need a plural of things. Нужны, нужны, нужен, нужен, нужна, нужна, нужно, нужно, нужны, нужны. Okay, but going back to нужно versus надо, I have to agree нужно to either plurality or to the gender of the thing that I need. With nada, I don't have to do that. Nada stays the same. However, I do need to to convert it to the genitive case for that word. And we haven't really worked with cases. You've heard me use the word cases, but we haven't gone into explaining the cases. And I don't think we'll actually ever get to it in this course, given we only have two more classes left. But cases exist, obviously, and case in Russian, and there are a total of 6 of them, and they are a big part of the language, which for the most part I've been trying to avoid in these classes. But what I'm getting at is you need to convert this thing that you're using nada for to the genitive case for it to be grammatically correct. So nada вода would be wrong. Nada воды. Мне надо воды. Okay, that would be with nada. And I believe it's easier uh, to agree нужно to the gender and plurality than to convert the word into genitive case. Certainly for us, because we haven't studied. So I'm biased toward нужно. Yeah. So that's my take on that. But both words among Russians are used interchangeably. I mean, it's hard to even think of a situation where they are not synonymous, of some context where you can use one but not the other. I mean, both sound pretty much equally natural in just about any situation. And so, I would say at this stage, just pick one, but be aware that the other one is out there so that you can recognize it when you hear it. And as far as which one to pick, I would recommend pick нужно. Yeah. Alrighty, let's move on to the challenge. I need to go home now. And I hope you remember the word for now. Мне нужно идти домой сейчас. And I left off the now. Yeah, the last word here should be сейчас. Or мне надо идти домой сейчас. Мне нужно идти домой сейчас. Мне надо идти домой сейчас. Do you need to do this today? Informal. Тебе нужно делать это сегодня? Or тебе надо делать это сегодня? And just a reminder, the most effective way to do these videos is to pause them after you hear the English sentence and try to formulate what you think the answer is out loud and to pronounce it. And see how close you come to my pronunciation. And if you have time, run these videos several times until you get it pretty close, until you get all the sentences pretty close to how I say them. When do you need to be here? Informal. I hope you remember the question word for when. When do you need to be here? Когда тебе нужно быть тут? Or когда тебе надо быть тут? Тут быть actually would sound more natural. These last two words change places. But if you're just sticking with the most direct translation from English because it's easier, that's fine too. What do you need here? Formal. If you're struggling with the dative case pronouns, it's a good time to probably to review them before you begin the challenge. What do you need here? Formal. Что вам тут нужно? Or что вам тут надо? I don't need this. Мне это не нужно. That's the most natural way of saying. Or you can say мне это не надо, which I did not display here. But I was referring to the order of the words. If you translate directly from I don't need this, you want to put это at the end, but мне не нужно это doesn't sound as natural. Мне это не нужно is the most natural way to say it. Though still at this stage, I don't really get on the word order, and you will be understood regardless. So, and I believe it's also grammatically correct. They need to eat more meat. I hope you remember the word for more. And also, the word meat will have to be put in the genitive case. So I don't expect you to get this one on the first time, but you'll at least see how it's supposed to be. Им нужно есть больше мяса. You see the ending changing on the word мясо. Or им надо есть больше мяса. I made a grammatical mistake here. She needs to drink water. And when we have a verb ending on a thing, we put that thing into accusative case. Again, we haven't taken the time to study this, so hopefully you will still learn something from these examples. She needs to drink water. Ей нужно пить воду. Or ей надо пить воду. Yeah, in all of these, нужно and надо are interchangeable. So even though I only put нужно, just know that надо is can always take its place when we're dealing with verbs. Does he need this? Ему это нужно? Or ему это надо? If you wanted to put это on the end and say ему нужно это or ему надо это, that's also fine. This is the most natural way to say it. I need to drink more. This time we don't need to convert water into accusative case or genitive case, rather, as was the case last time. I need to drink more because we're just saying we need to drink more, and that's it. Мне нужно пить больше. Or мне надо пить больше. Do you remember our, let's see, at the end of lecture 3, we talked about a little bit about the count and being there in a certain number of hours. So to say in 2 hours would be через 2 часа. Через is the word that's loosely here translated as in. Два is the number 2, and часа is the let's see, is the genitive case, I want to say, of the word hours. But regardless, in place of in 2 hours, you would say через 2 часа. Informal. Тебе нужно быть тут через 2 часа. Or тебе надо быть тут через 2 часа. I don't need to do this anymore. Now, we already know that to say more is больше. However, it will not be, we will not need any more words to for it to mean any more. So even though больше means more, in this context, it will be understood as any more. I don't need to do this anymore. Мне больше не нужно это делать. Or мне больше не надо это делать. That's the most natural way to say this. If you put больше all the way on the end to directly match English, that's still good. That's still good. But this feels way more natural. Мне больше не нужно это делать. I hope you remember the word for where. And I hope you also remember that the present tense to be is not stated in Russian, which makes things easier. I need to know where he is. Мне нужно знать, где он. Or мне надо знать, где он. I need to know who she is. I hope you remember the word for who. Мне нужно знать, кто она. Or мне надо знать, кто она. You need to know how to do this. Formal. I hope you remember the word for how. Вам нужно знать, как это делать. If you said как делать это and basically change places with these last two words, that's also fine. But this is the most natural way. Or вам надо знать, как это делать. You don't need to wait for me. Informal. And as a reminder, that while in English we wait for someone, in Russian we wait someone. But in this case, we have a verb acting directly on the pronoun, which puts it in the accusative case, which is the same case that we used for asking what people's names are. Тебе не нужно ждать меня. Or тебе не надо ждать меня. You don't need to know this. Informal. Тебе не нужно это знать. Or тебе не надо это знать. If you switch these last two words and said знать это, that's also just as fine. She doesn't need to know this. Ей не нужно это знать. Or ей не надо это знать. Again, if you said ей не нужно знать это, or ей не надо знать это, basically switch these last two words, that's also fine. You don't need to help him anymore. Formal. Вам больше не нужно ему помогать. Or вам больше не надо ему помогать. Now, if you switch the words and made it a direct translation from English, let's see, you would have said, вам не нужно помогать ему больше, is what you would have said, which doesn't sound as natural. but you will still be understood. I don't need to work here anymore. Мне больше не нужно тут работать. Or мне больше не надо тут работать. And again, the word order uh, that directly translates from English is also fine, but this is more natural.